Hello, and welcome to another episode. In today's episode, I am going to be teaching you how you can select elements from HTML using JavaScript. But before we get started, if you are new to my channel, make sure to hit that subscribe button. If you like this video, don't forget to give me a thumbs up. That really helps me out. And if you want to get notified every time that I upload a new video, you can hit that ring bell. Okay, so let's get started. Okay, everybody. So to get started in today's episode, I want you to open w3schools.com, go into the JavaScript section, and you're going to scroll all the way down to where you see JS HTML DOM. Now, in there, I want you to click on DOM methods. And we are also going to be opening MDN. On MDN, on the search box, you're going to type in get element. And then you are probably going to have the first article saying get element by ID method. So you can select the first article in there. And then, of course, I have opened the same website that we have been coding so far with. And I have also opened my Visual Studio Code here with the same code that we had from yesterday. Now, one thing I erased yesterday and that I am going to add back in today is going to be the script tag, okay? Because we want to make sure that we link our document with JavaScript, right? So let's go ahead and let's do that. Let's link again this. So let me just do that right now for you. Let's do script and then source. And then the source is going to be the name of our script sheet, right? Our JavaScript sheet. So that'll be script. There you go, script.js. And then, of course, let's just close the script tag. Okay, so let me just go ahead and save this. And just let me just console that log 1, 2, 3, and then I am going to make this a string. I just want to make sure that this works out, so let me just go ahead and save this information. Oh, and I'm also going to save it in here, and then let me just make sure that I open here our console to make sure that this document is linked. So let's see, console.log 1 plus 2. Okay, let's hit save. Going back to our code, hitting refresh. Okay. Okay, so I just wanted to make sure that this is working. So let's okay, so let's hit refresh, and yes, it is working. As you can see, 1, 2, 3 is in the console. So okay, let's just erase this, hit save, and let's refresh again to make sure that our console is empty. Okay, so now we have back our script linked to our index.html file. Okay, so well, being that said, let's go ahead and let's get started in today's episode. So today's episode is about teaching you how to select content or how to select elements here from your HTML document so that then you can manipulate them using JavaScript. Now, yesterday I explained you what the DOM is and why is this so important for you to understand. Now, in today's episode, again, what you are going to learn today is going to be to select the elements that we have here, like the head section, the body section, maybe this H1P that we have here, or image, or the image tag that you can see here, so that we can work with it in JavaScript. Now, in JavaScript, it kind of works like in the same way it works on CSS. You know, on CSS, whenever you want to change, let's say, the background color of something, you will use, let's say, if you want to change the background of the body, then you're going to use something saying body, and then, you know, you just put the background in black, gray, or whatever color you want it. So it's the same thing. In CSS, you have selectors like H1, Ps, you have classes, you have IDs. You can select multiple things from the HTML document so that then you can play around with them in CSS. Right? So I'm just giving you this example so that you can have an idea on how it works in JavaScript. In JavaScript, it kind of works in the same way. You can select, let's say, tags like H1, P, image, and you can select elements by their ID and their classes as well. Okay? So now the question that you might be wondering right now is how you can do that. in order for us to do this in JavaScript, we use what we call methods, right? The methods of the DOM, which is, remember, this document converted into an object in JavaScript so that we can manipulate it. So what are the methods that we are going to be using in order for us to select these elements? So here we are going to be explaining that right now. If you jump into W3 Schools and you go to where I said the DOM and then DOM methods, we're going to first read here a little bit so you can have a clear understanding of this, and then we're going to show you a couple of examples. So the HTML DOM methods are actions that you can perform. As you already know what methods are, so I think this is a little bit like an add-on for you, because if you have been following this JavaScript course along, you already know what a method is and you already know what you can do with methods. Anyways, let's just keep on reading. So the HTML DOM methods are actions that you can perform on the HTML elements, right? Now, the HTML properties, because remember, an object has methods and properties. So the properties here in the DOM will be the values. Pay close attention to this. Will be the values of the HTML elements that you can set or change. So we can say the methods are actions that you can perform on the elements, right? And then the properties are value of that element. So a property in this document could be this portion right here. JavaScript demo is the property, right? And then, of course, we have the H1, which is the element. Now, the HTML DOM can be accessed with JavaScript. In the DOM, all HTML elements are defined as objects, as you already know. Now, the programming interface is the property and methods for each object, right? So a property is a value that you can set, like changing the content of the HTML element, which is what I already explained. And then a method is an action that you can do, like deleting an HTML element, adding it, etc. Right? So in order to not confuse you too much with this, let's just go ahead and let's take a look at the example. The example that we have in here. I'm going to click here where it says try it yourself, right? And then we can take a look and see here that we have an H2 and then we have a paragraph. Now, this paragraph has an ID of demo, right? And the paragraph right now is empty. Now, in order to access to this paragraph, we use the document.getElementById, right? Get element by ID of demo, which is this ID of demo right here. And then we use the property .innerHTML, which is the content of the paragraph, which right now is empty. And we make it, and we actually change it to hello world in this example. So let me explain you real quick what this portion right here means. If we go back to the DOM methods, you see here that it says in the example above, get element by ID is a method, right? While inner HTML is a property, which is what I was just explaining to you right now. Okay, so we use get element by ID, the method, in order to select all the IDs or whatever ID that we specified from the document so that we can go ahead and play around with it in JavaScript, right? And then inner HTML is the content of that element or that we are selecting, right? So if we say, hey, document, we are referring, and let's go back here to the code. If we say document, we are referring to the document, right? To the HTML document. And then we use the dot operator and then get element by ID method because it has parentheses and you can do something with it. So we're telling, hey, get the element by the ID of demo, right? So document HTML document, get element by ID of demo. So the ID of demo is this one right here, he says. It says. And then we use, again, the dot operator. And then we select the inner HTML, which is the content of the paragraph. And we make it equal to hello world. So if the paragraph is empty, it's going to have the word hello world. Because as you can see, we're using the equal operator. And then we are assigning strings to it. So that this paragraph can now have the phrase hello world in between. So again, we use document, right? The word document is a keyword in order for you to know that you're talking to the document, right? To the DOM. Now, dot get element by ID of demo is the method where we are selecting an ID, right? Because it's getting element by ID only. And then dot inner HTML is that we are accessing to the property of this ID in particular. Now, I hope this is making sense. But anyways, I will teach you right now an example into our code. Okay, we're going to use this same syntax so that you can see the example. Now, if we let's open our website. Now, if we go to our website, right now we have a paragraph, and it says this is a paragraph, right? So what I am going to do is that I am going to clear the content of my paragraph, and I am going to change here. I'm actually going to add an ID as well. So let's add an ID, and let's say that this is my paragraph. I will call this ID my paragraph. Okay. So I am going to save this. Let's go back to our code and let's hit refresh. So now the phrase, this is a paragraph, has been erased. Now, if I go to script.js, I can use document.get element. Okay, get element. And here you see how on Visual Studio Code, we have some sort of suggestions of things that we can select, right? So if I go ahead and I type in get element, there you go. We had it in here. So get element by ID, it gives me this, right? Get element by ID. And then in parentheses, we go ahead and we select the ID that we're searching. Now, if we go back to the example here in W3 schools, you see how they use strings and then they put the ID. So you have to do the same thing. We are going to use strings into our code in here. And then we're going to select the ID that we just created. Now, in this case, is my paragraph. So let me just copy this, and then we're going to paste that in here. Now, we say dot inner HTML, because we're talking to the content, right, of our paragraph, which right now is empty. And we already saw that here because the information got erased. And then what we are going to say is make this equal to a string, and then we're going to, I don't know, say something like, hey, I am here again. And then we're going to say, this is a paragraph. Okay. So this is a paragraph. I mean, you can type whatever you want. I am just typing this, and then I'm just closing the entire thing that I'm typing in there, right? So we're doing the same thing. Let's go ahead and let's make sure to hit save. Okay. I'm going to hit save here and make sure this is also saved. Going back to our code, let's hit refresh. And now it says, hey, I am here again. This is a paragraph, right? So at this moment, you just manipulated the DOM, right? Because you are able to select an ID. You created an ID in your document, and you grab that ID by using document, get element by the ID of my paragraph, and then dot inner HTML, which is, the content itself, and then make it hey, I am here again. This is a paragraph. Now, I will teach you how to change stuff, how to delete or add stuff inside of HTML. But for today, I just want you to understand and know how you can select your elements. This is one way of doing it, by selecting them by ID. So if you go ahead and you jump in here to the next document that says DOM document in here, the next article, DOM document, you will see a little bit more of methods that you can use to select things from the DOM. So you have document.get element by ID, which is going to find an element by its ID like we did in here, get element by ID of my paragraph. You can go ahead and also use get elements by tag name. Now, if you use get elements by tag name, you are going to be selecting the specific element tag. So you don't have to use the ID. You just select the H1, the P, the image, so that you can go ahead and actually work around with that. Now, there is another one that is called document.get element by class name, and you find the elements by that class name. So if instead of an ID, you have here the word class, then that specific method is going to look for classes instead of IDs. Okay, so that is the way that you can select and find elements using JavaScript. Okay, and this is a great way and a fundamental thing that you need to understand when you are starting to manipulate the DOM, right? How can you access to certain things within the DOM, right? So you can do them by ID, you can do them by classes, you can do them by tag names. Okay. Now, another way that you can go ahead and add and select things here from the DOM will be by using something called query selector. If you go to MDN and you are in the document that get element by ID method article that I show you, you can scroll a little bit down and then you're going to see something that is called query selector. Okay, this one right here. So query selector is another way that you can select things from the DOM. I'll give you the homework to study what a query selector is. And then in later episodes, I am going to explain what a query selector is and how you can use it and what's the difference between query selectors and this get elements by ID or get element by classes. Okay. But for now, know that these are the ways that you can select elements from your DOM, either using get element by ID, by class, by tag name, or you can also use the query selectors. So the homework that you will have is to study what query selector method is and how you can use it and how query selector all will be able to help you out as well. If you want to know a little bit more in terms of how to use the document get element by ID method, then I strongly suggest you to jump into MDN because I mean here in W3 schools, it explains in a friendly way, right? What you can do with it. But if you want to get very technical and you want to know specifically the rules and everything, MDN is the best place to go because this is the original source for JavaScript documentation. Okay. So if you go into MDN and you click on document get element by ID method article, then here you can read a little bit more about it. And let's do that right now. So the get element by ID method of the document interface returns the element object representing the element whose ID's properties matches with the specified string, which is what we already did here. As you can see, we use document get element by ID of my paragraph, which was this ID right here. That's the string that is matching, right? Now, since the element ID is required to be unique if it specifies, they are a useful way to get access to specific elements quickly. You need to get access to an element which doesn't have an ID, then you can use query selector, which is what I was just explaining. You can use also query selector to find the element using any type of selectors. Pay close attention to that because query selector is very, very useful. That's why I am sending you to study that so that we can go ahead and actually talk about it in our next episodes. Now, read these notes in blue because they are very important. IDs should be unique inside of a document, which you already know if you have already studied HTML and CSS. If two or more elements in a document have the same ID, then this method returns the first element found and it's not going to take into consideration any other elements, right? And another thing is that the capitalization of ID in the name of this method must be correct for the code to function. So it has to be like this, get element by ID, okay? So it has to be camel case. If you do not write this down correctly, if you use lowercase letters and you don't do it like the way it is in here, then you are probably going to get an error. In fact, let's try it right now. If I go ahead and instead of saying get element by ID, I just type in ID. I'm going to hit save. Going back to our code, let's hit refresh. See, now I am getting an error. Now here, the script tag is telling me exactly what the error is, and it's saying that it's in line 1, right? Because obviously I just changed this to lowercase letters, so let's just make sure it's capitalized. Now I hit refresh again, and boom, it's working again. So you just have to be very, very careful when using lowercase letters in here, okay? So I hope this is clear enough for you to understand how you can select elements from the DOM using JavaScript with these methods. But please go ahead and read a little bit more, okay? If you click here, get element by class names, you can go ahead and actually play around. Create classes, then grab elements by the class names, right? And you can do it using this syntax right here. In get element by ID, you get the element by using the ID. If you click on get element by class name, then of course you're going to be getting the element by class names. And then just make sure that you read all warning signs and everything so that if you get an error, you know exactly why it is. And then, of course, get elements by the name or by the tag name. I mean, there are several methods, and we are not going to be able to cover them all. But just the main ones that we see is typically get element by ID or query selector. So go ahead and make sure to study those. And in our next episode, we're going to be advancing in more things here within the DOM. Okay, everyone. So that was it for this tutorial. If you have any questions, make sure to leave them in the comment section below, and I will reply as soon as I can. Also, if you have find this video useful, make sure to leave me a thumbs up. That really helps me out in my channel. And if you want to get notified every time that I upload a new video, make sure to hit that ring bell. And remember that you can always ask Lixi. Bye everyone, and see you again in the next episode.